Over to you, Councillor Dugan.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Okay, we will crack on. Catherine, apologies for absence.
We've had apologies for absence from Councillor Marissa Heath of Surrey County Council, and Councillor Paul Deach is substituting for her. I've also had apologies from Richard Parkinson of Surrey County Council.
Yes, he gave them a moment to go. Thanks. Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Anyone got any comments on the minutes in the paper? Councillor Tilling.
Thank you, Chair. I see from, it's down, I think, under 4JW. There was a comment about large variations in fly tipping. No clear reason why this was from quarter to quarter. Did we get any data on fly tipping? I can't see those in the minutes.
I don't know who's best placed to give us an update.
I don't know if Kingsley, are you with us? Is there any data from your side of things, or Joe or Neil from the contract side? Is there any additional information?
Yeah, so I wasn't, hi, sorry, morning everyone. I wasn't in the last committee meeting. In our performance report, we do have fly tipping data in the performance report, so I can highlight that, but there is no, with fly tipping, I'm sure the guys in ops can back me up, there is no clear pattern because it is very random, but there is tonnage, we have put tonnage data in the performance report, but I haven't had, there's been no addition, or I haven't been aware of any addition apart from that.
Okay, so when you say the performance report, those are the individual tables that we get, authority by authority.
Yes, you've got sorry, you've got the annexes, but you've also got the pros, which I'll be going through, which is agenda item 4 right in front of me. Okay, thanks.
And it seems to say the same comment, to be fair, that there are big variations and there's no discernible reason why. But any other comments on the minutes? No. Right. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have disclosable declarations of interest? No fly tippers wanting to own up. I'll take that as a no. Okay, quarterly performance report. Kingsley, before you kick off on that, we had a discussion just a moment ago, as I'm sure you're well aware, and I couldn't think of any better place to butt in with my comment. But I think the joint authorities wished to express their gratitude and really to commend Amy and JWS for the performance that you gave us through the strike and your response to the strike, the continual updates and changes in the scenario. And as was commented actually by Ray earlier, a number of residents were barely aware that a strike took place. And I think that was down to a really excellent performance by all of the operational staff. And I thank you for that. I had one particular comment as well, and I just wanted to make more of it as an observation. I know that you briefed your staff that were going to go on strike prior to the strike and asked that they behave, I guess, in a particular and legal way. And again, and I was on all of the operational calls throughout the duration of the strike. Any disturbances, friction that occurred, as certainly as it was reported through the strike, were all down to union officials rather than your members of staff. And I think, again, that is something that should be commented back, and we should thank you and your staff for the way that they behaved and the performance that you provided. So thank you, one and all. Kingsley.
Thank you, Councillor, and morning again. So I'm just going to go through the performance report for Q1 22-23. So just as giving context, as always, the Surrey-wide performance. Tonnages remain higher than the pre-pandemic levels, but they are decreasing, and a decrease of 6.2% across all waste streams. This is just due to, we believe that levels are just reducing back to pre-pandemic levels, but we're also going to monitor with the current cost of living crisis if that's also going to be affecting tonnages, especially food waste, if people are buying less or throwing out less. So that's kind of on our radar. So for joint contract authorities, the general trends are following the Surrey-wide trends, that there is a decrease. Elmbridge, DMR tonnages saw a decrease of 6.8%. Food waste is down by 9.5 and residual down by 4.3. And the garden waste was down by 39.2, but that's just due to reduced service of the garden waste service. I should reiterate that these are the year to June 2022, so it's the rolling year. As I mentioned before, fly tipping tonnages, so they have decreased this year, 23.6%, but we've said it's a noticeable improvement since pre-pandemic levels, but there is no clear pattern. The Elmbridge's quarterly recycling rate is 55.2, and then their rolling rate is 51. Mole Valley, DMR, and food are down by 7.6 and 7.5% respectively. Residual was also down by 5.1 and garden down by 38.9 due to the service disruption. Regarding their tonnage, their fly tipping tonnages, it was 26 tons. So it's up 6 tons of the same period from the previous year. But as we said, no clear pattern. Their quarterly recycling rate is 55.1% and their rolling rate is 53.3%. Surrey Heath, DMR was down by 6.5, food was down by 4.7, garden waste down by 28.8 for the usual reasons. Residual was down by 2.5, but that's pretty low compared to everyone else. Fly tipping was down by 68.4% from 197 tons to 62 tons, but no known factors for this unless the ops can butt in and let me know. Their quarterly recycling rate was 61.2% and their rolling rate was 58.1. Woking, DMR, and food was down by 5.6 and 7.9% respectively. Garden waste tonnages were down by 37.6, and that's reduced garden service, and their residual waste was down by 2.8. The quarterly recycling rate for Woking was 55.8, and the 12-month rolling rate was 50.9%. In the board report, there was a comment about that in the next report, we will be comparing it to pre-pandemic levels to see what we're doing. So that will be included in the next report, which will include the data up to Q2. So we'll be comparing, we'll do the same comparison as we've done now, but we'll also do another comparison against pre-pandemic levels to see what the change is from that. So that'll be from 1920. But I'm open to any questions now.
Okay, questions? I do have one then that I will ask, and I just want to say that I'm not sort of trying to brag or boast, but why is Surrey Heath's recycling rate notably better than the other 3 authorities?
So historically, Surrey Heath have always been the highest recycling rate authority. That factors are, it's kind of difficult to say, but Surrey Heath have always been the top of the list. It could be down to garden waste in your area. It could be just down to residents embracing recycling. I believe a few years ago, if anyone knows the history of Surrey Heath better, that there was a change in service when you introduced food service, and that was a really good start to the recycling rate in Surrey Heath, and it's just continued ever since.
Yes, do
Okay.
you want me to add to that? I mean, I think in Surrey Heath there are, as Kingsley says, there are always a number of factors that influence this, but I think at the same time as service change was delivered in Surrey Heath, the range of materials that were collected for recycling was expanded quite significantly, and there are additional materials collected through the commingled recycling in that area compared to others in Surrey. And equally, Surrey Heath at the same time introduced a 180 litre size capacity refuse bin, which obviously does encourage residents to really take full advantage of the recycling service when they have some slightly more limited capacity with their refuse than the standard size bin in other areas. A whole range of factors that contribute to that, but those will be some of the key ones as well.
Thanks, Joe. Councillor Salmon. You're on mute.
I was sneezing. Yeah, it's on the generally on the fly tipping and the comment made that it's various. It's surprising how that has gone up and down. I mean, if we look at this, Surrey Heath said that theirs has gone from 197 to 62 tonnes, still quite a lot. But I mean, the Mole Valley fly tipping is surprisingly small but has gone up considerably, because if it was 7 tonnes in 2020 and 26 tonnes in 2022, up 6 tonnes the same period. So our fly tipping is going up, and even though it's much lower than everyone else's, I think it's partly because we don't have access right across the district 7 days a week to the sites that we can drop things off, and people are very aware of that. But I just wonder if anyone's got any thoughts about why it is continuing to go up, other than we don't have this. Only the Leatherhead one is open all week, and the Dorking site is only open a couple, and only for recycle, real recycle. So I wonder if anyone's got any views on it.
Joe?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, it is a difficult one because relatively speaking, and I appreciate this, the fluctuations in percentage terms can be quite big, but relatively speaking, compared to the other tonnages we look at, they are still very small a lot of the time. So it is very hard to pin down what's going on over the course of whatever period we're reporting on. Sometimes it can be as simple as sometimes we might see a significant size fly tip in one area, and that bumps the tonnage up quite considerably, because it will certainly be collected as a separate load and recorded as such, whereas there are occasions, because of the way the service operates, that an individual item that's picked up, which is as part of a street cleaning service, might not get categorized in quite the same way as effectively, which, ideally we want all the waste to be clearly categorized, but there, because of the way the street cleaning crews operate, sometimes some of that might get accounted for slightly differently at the gate when they tip. We did a lot of work, and I won't be able to quote numbers now because it was quite some time ago, but we did track report numbers for fly tipping during sort of lockdown and COVID, particularly when the CRCs were closed, because of concerns across Surrey that would see impacts on fly tipping. And as much as I'd like to say we could use those numbers to help us understand it, I think the way, again, that it's reported through different IT systems, etc., it still gives us some willingness around being able to be really confident whether there are genuinely more reports, or do we get duplicates in some areas where in others that's managed differently and it isn't so common. So I don't really have an answer, but I know that we've looked at lots of areas to try and explain it, but there's not always a solid answer that we can give, unfortunately. But I think it's useful to keep tracking it so that we can continue to review it. And
I think it is useful to keep tracking. I mean, from my local experience, it tends to be DIY type waste that tends to end up in the areas, and the occasional settee. I'm just thinking, really, whether it's the guy who says I will clear your rubbish, or the builder that actually isn't bringing it to the dump. But of course, with new legislation coming through, with DIY waste being able to potentially being taken for nothing, it might stop that anyway.
Danielle?
Yes, good morning all. Just to add on to that, Councillor Salmon, I think in Surrey Heath at the minute, we're trialling and working with the enforcement team, doing some work with the crew that are responsible for visiting the fly tips and looking at recording that more accurately through the system. So if that proves to be beneficial and successful in Surrey Heath, then we can definitely look to roll that out across the other borough areas to try and give us that greater detail and understanding of what those fly tips are.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions on Kingsley's report? No. Gosh, we're fairly motoring on. So the Amy contract improvement plan will be a presentation.
It will be. Just bear with me a moment and I will attempt to. Are we able to see
Yes.
slides? Fabulous. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Danielle Wright, for those of you that don't know me, I will be covering off the update for Amy this morning. I'm the Principal Operations Manager, so I look after the 4 contracts that we have within Surrey. So an overview of what's to be covered in the presentation, an update on strike action and the strike recovery. I'll give an update on business continuity plans, an update on garden waste, an update on recruitment, and then a review of actions and tracking of those against our improvement strategy for 22-23. So just an update on the strike action that we had at the beginning of August. So we had 2 weeks of industrial action in the end, which was a week shorter than originally planned when we were served notice. So the 2 sites that were affected were Elmbridge and Surrey Heath, and we managed to maintain the refuse and food collections within those boroughs, as well as Skeleton Street cleansing services. The industrial action was a first for many on the account and was heavily supported by central functions from Amy. So we had people services on site every day throughout that industrial action and additional health and safety support. So that was really useful in terms of managing those picket lines. And as Councillor Dugan pointed out, the Amy employees actually behaved in a very appropriate manner whilst that industrial action was taking place, and no issues were reported in terms of their behaviours. We communicated regularly with the employees, both face-to-face and via letters. And the 2 weeks following the industrial action saw the 2 unaffected sites supporting with the catch-up operation. So Mole Valley and Woking both supported Elmbridge and Surrey Heath in terms of clearing the backlog of collections for recycling and garden waste. And we were able to recover that all by the end of August, which I think was a pretty great performance from the teams that had that industrial action. So after the industrial action took place, we still had support from people services. So representatives from our HR team were visible on site for any employees to kind of raise concerns to either issues that had arisen during the industrial action or whilst we were trying to integrate those 2 groups of people back together. And we've also set up monthly engagement forums so that we can track issues that our frontline employees have, so they can come. I will spend a day on site and it will be kind of a drop-in service for our employees to come and raise any issues that they don't feel they're getting support with. Following the industrial action, we're also trying to strengthen that relationship we have with the unions that represent our workforce. So having monthly meetings with them so that we don't get to next year's pay review and we haven't spoken to them for kind of 9 months. We want to open up that communication channel and keep it regular, so we can avoid any further disruption to services. And just a note to point that white space really proved to be a benefit during the industrial action in terms of the accurate reporting and the progress of the recovery. It gave us a much better visibility of kind of outstanding services and how the crews were doing compared to our previous operating system. So an update on our business continuity plans. So whilst the industrial action was ongoing, it highlighted to us that given the short notice that we had to plan for that, there were some gaps in our continuity plans and how we can plan for mass disruption to service. So we're covering or we're doing a full review of those continuity plans. We've conducted a review and we feel that having a singular business continuity plan to cover the 4 sites and scenarios that are likely to cause mass disruption to service is the way forward. Having 4 separate documents just proved to be pretty wordy and quite repetitive, and I think the majority of scenarios fit each of the locations very similarly. So we've got a target to share that with JWS by the end of September. So by tomorrow, they will have it in their inbox, and we'll then jointly sit down and review that continuity plan, and we'll agree to test some of the scenarios within it. We've also removed some of the scenarios because a lot of them are duplicated in the emergency response plans, scenarios such as bomb threats and spillages, which we feel can be in the emergency plan rather than the continuity plan. So with both of the above plans, we will arrange for testing to be carried out of certain scenarios to ensure those fully involved have an understanding and the plans are robust and achievable. Just an update on garden waste. So garden waste services are fully reinstated with the service stabilising in all areas. We have no vacancies on the account now, so we are fully up at headcount, which is a really positive place to be. That pay review that we did in August and agreed with the unions has really helped stabilise our resourcing, and as such, majority of the garden waste rounds are now completing on the day they're scheduled to, with the only exception being if there's the normal historic kind of vehicle issues that we would have seen pre-HGV driver shortage. 3 of the 4 boroughs are accepting new subscribers, and subscribers are able to add an additional container. The one that isn't is Mole Valley. Garden waste customers are also able to renew their subscriptions, and white space is proving to be a benefit for the garden waste crews, as it enables crews to identify the number of containers each address should have, as well as seeing which subscriptions are live and up to date. It would be really useful if we could push along with the improvement plan in integrating Mole Valley and Elmbridge fully onto white space in order to give the crews that information across the whole contract. Just an update on recruitment and people, as it's been something that's been heavily covered throughout the past kind of 12 months. So we have zero driver vacancies, and when we do have vacancies arise, we're able to recruit against those pretty quickly. We're also seeing an improvement in the quality of the candidates coming through for both driver and loader positions. So where we had drivers before that were coming with little experience, and we felt that they perhaps were potentially a risk in the vehicles given they wouldn't have driven a rear steer vehicle before, we're now seeing candidates come through with a wealth of experience, and that's also settling down. We've successfully trained 4 of our loaders to be fully qualified HGV drivers now, with a further 4 making their way through the learning. We've also secured approval to over-recruit in the coming months to stabilise the service to residents, recognising the fact that it's been very up and down for them over the past 12 months. So we're trying to put in contingency plans now that we don't have any shortfall in staff. In addition, the additional staff are used to support the daily operation so that our crews can attend quality training sessions, which will in turn drive performance in safety, the use of white space and understanding their performance. So at the moment, because the crews spend a lot of time out on the ground, they're not in the depots for a very long time. Our time with them is quite limited. So the idea would be to bring a crew in for half a day and spend some really quality time with them going through their role and their position. We're also rolling out further workshops for frontline and our managerial grade employees with different topics each month. So safety, well-being, mental health, support with finances at home, and customer service. And the account is also working very closely with our people services to support our employees with the current cost of living increases. So we're seeing what additional services we can enroll on the account to offer support to those employees, as a lot of them have a lot of concerns at the minute with the current state. Moving on to the improvement strategy, I've some bullet points next to each of these. So for the garden waste services, subscriptions are reinstated, additional bins are available, online payments are available to Surrey Heath and Woking residents. Automatic end dates in the system. This is complete for Surrey Heath and Woking, but for this to be the case for Mole Valley and Elmbridge, they would need to fully integrate onto Whitespace. And additional containers and resident subscriptions aligning is still ongoing and part of the Whitespace improvement plan. So to touch on the Whitespace improvement plan, so for next collections added to the tab, all scheduled collections are visible now. Worksheets are now identified by form type. There is the function to add a photo to a worksheet. And when we run the missed bin reporting, we are now able to see the full crew ID on that. Outstanding actions for Whitespace still is to load in bin movements and stock takes so that we can readily see where we have certain stock of container types, so that the 4 contract areas can better work together to ensure that we don't have any residents waiting longer than necessary for new or replacement containers. We still have work to do for the chargeable and non-chargeable forms coming together, and we still have work to do on the Mole Valley Street schedule being loaded into Whitespace. So for KPIs, following the strike action and strike recovery, we've reinstated the monthly meetings. So each site has a deep dive into their KPI performance. The monitoring and additional training for crews is forecast to deliver the improvements committed to in the improvement plan. And the container control project has been pushed back to March 23 to allow members of the team to focus on the garden waste subscriptions and renewals, given that we've got a lot of work to do with containers out there, specifically in Woking and Surrey Heath. Sustainability. So HVO fuel trial has been paused at the minute. This was due to a notification from the Environment Agency. So any site that is under control of the Environment Agency has been asked to suspend the use of HVO fuel from the end of this month, as there are queries around whether it is not as green as it was first perceived to be. There are suggestions that in order to produce it, it is actually creating more carbon than other fuel alternatives. Supplier parts review, this is in progress, and we've put contingencies in place where parts are on back order, as well as going to suppliers direct. And we're also looking to share stock with our other waste contracts in Trafford to reduce vehicle downtime and the time that we wait for parts. Bulky collection reuse is proving to be quite a challenge. The majority of third parties that we contact to try and liaise with and set something up, they want us to hold the bulky waste items on site for them to come and inspect them before they assume which items they'd like to take away and which they wouldn't. And we're really struggling with storage space to keep those items somewhere safe, secure, free from water, etc. So work to do on that one. And with electric sweepers, we're currently trying to arrange demo vehicles to trial in Mole Valley to consider the suitability. So one of our account members went up to a trade show in Birmingham last week and has formed a relationship with a company that are looking to provide some electric sweepers into Mole Valley for trial. But the waiting list for those is quite significant, given that everyone's trying to go down the same channel. Finally, just on Zero Code, which is our kind of employee well-being and safety. So following the strike action, support has naturally increased within the depots. Weekly calls are taking place with people services to ensure that we're supporting our employees the best that we can. We also have those monthly forums whereby employees can bring issues to us confidentially. The route round risk assessments have progressed, and there's a weekly call in place with each of the individual sites. So they have a half-hour call each week to review the route round risk assessments and make any changes. That takes place with our safety team. And then Zero Code is our zero harm. So monthly safety forums introduced with quarterly forums held at one of the sites, with all of the sites coming together, so we can share kind of any incidents that have taken place and share best practice and ways of working. We keep an action log from all of those forums, which all employees have access to. And each site now has a health and safety rep from the frontline team who is the voice and can raise issues to us if needed. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Any comments or questions? Ashley.
Yeah, thank you very much, Danielle. That was very thorough. On the strike, there was one of the press releases from GMB not only referred to pay, but also to working conditions. Now, it was only issued on that one press release, but I just wondered whether there was any issue that was brought to your attention about working conditions of your staff.
Thank you, Councillor Tilling. I'm struggling to think of any one scenario that could be relating to. We do have these monthly forums. They were taking place quarterly prior to the strike action, but we've ramped those up now to become more frequent. And having just held the last round of those over the past 2 weeks, there haven't been any kind of concerns raised to me within working conditions. And I know that our HR people partners were on site a lot at the time, and they haven't shared any feedback either.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we did think, when I asked JWS this question, they said that, well, it didn't seem to be an issue at all. The strike issue was all about pay, and that was the issue that was resolved. Can I just follow up with another couple of questions, if I may? You mentioned the integration with Elmbridge and Mole Valley not yet having happened in white space. Is there a sort of schedule for that to be finished off so that we are fully integrated?
From my point of view, I would like to hope so. I'm not the most clued up person on that project, Councillor Tilling. So Joe's got a hand up.
Joe?
Yes, this work to look at how to integrate Elmbridge forms into the system that Amy operates has really kicked off in the last few weeks. So we've been having a weekly call that involves Amy IT and business support team that run the back office area of Whitespace, Elmbridge's IT supplier, and ourselves to really talk about integrating as a priority the sort of big ticket items, the high volume processes like the spin reporting and container orders and areas like that. But it's a significant piece of work. We hope that the large scale stuff can be done really quite soon. So in the run up to Christmas, we'll see that progress somewhat, I think. But then there'll be some ancillary bits around that which might take a little bit longer, but they tend to be the low volume or less frequent requests.
Okay, yeah. So it's work in progress and should be done by the end of the year. Thank you. I just wonder when you were talking through the current staffing levels, are you still employing agency staff?
Yes, we are, Councillor Tilling. So the way that we recruit on the account is via temp to perm with agencies. So we'll onboard an agency worker. They'll do 8 weeks with us, and then they'll be offered a full-time contract. And the reason we do that is if we take on direct employees, the job adverts are still out there, but we don't see very many applicants for them. But also, if somebody comes to us direct, having not done the role before, it's very difficult for them to assume what the role actually involves. And we find that they don't stay very long after they join us. So for a loader, for example, I don't think when most people apply, they appreciate that you have to walk up to 12 miles a day, which is quite physically demanding. Whereas if we onboard via the agency, there's that flexibility for them to kind of try it out before they decide.
Yeah. Okay. So roughly how many agency staff are you employing at the moment?
So at the moment, I've probably got around 35 agency staff across the 4 locations. And we track their kind of start dates and when they would reach that temp to perm date, and we then convert them over and offer them full-time work with us.
Okay, so you don't anticipate that once that sort of 8-week period is up, that you're going to lose a lot of agency staff and then go back to having vacancies?
No, the majority of them do take the offer of that temp to perm contract. So the only time that we would then need to find another agency worker is if somebody left us, which we're seeing that's not as much of an issue now because of those pay rates. We're retaining staff.
Right. Can I have a final question, please, Chair? And that's you mentioned the problems with HVO fuel. I know that at our depot in Elmbridge, we're just about to trial running some of our community service vehicles on biofuel, and it is co-located with AMI vehicles. I just wonder whether you've thought about perhaps running these vehicles on biofuel.
I will have to take that one away. It's not an answer I have specifically right now, but I can certainly go and speak with the compliance team and get an update on that one for you, Councillor Tilling.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Danielle. Councillor Salmon.
Yeah, I'm presuming that the same situation as occurs in Elmbridge is basically what's happening with Mole Valley on white space.
Joe, I'm not sure if
Yeah, I tried to unmute and failed miserably. Sorry, I'll leave you hanging there. There's definitely conversations happening, and I know it's definitely an ambition in Mole Valley to get those processes integrated. We haven't kicked that off to the same extent as we have in Elmbridge yet, but I know there are conversations happening in the background about how that project can be resourced and taken forward.
It's slightly different in Mole Valley because we do input into the system in some form at the minute, so they're not as far away from kind of using it as Elmbridge are.
So they're using white space but using it in a basic manner.
I think, shall I just to AMI are using white space in all 4 of the depots. It's on the authority side where the integration is outstanding on Mole Valley and Elmbridge. In Elmbridge currently they use their own set of web forms, and residents input those, and AMI access the Elmbridge CRM in the depot, which is why there's a break between the collecting crews and what a resident reports. In Mole Valley, the contact centre staff, they input the reports for missed bins, etc., into Whitespace. They've been given a login by AMI whilst the integration piece happens. So for the depot, it feels a lot more integrated in Mole Valley than it does in Elmbridge.
So is there anything that I can do to kick it along the road, or is it basically all under control?
As Joe says, it's just a matter, I think, of resourcing in your IT team. They've definitely, it's on their work plan. I think at the moment we have the advantage in Elmbridge, and why it's been delayed slightly in Elmbridge is because the new CRM is coming in, which means that there's the contractor is engaged already to deliver that work and deliver the integration. In Mole Valley, because you already have the CRM, it's a matter of the IT team having it in their work plan. And I know they've been very busy this year with lots of new systems and forms themselves, but I know Ismina is working hard to make sure that the integration is delivered as soon as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, she's not on this, or she might have been able to answer it. So if I just know that Ismina knows about it, I can deal with that. The other thing was the concept of electric sweepers in Mole Valley. My understanding on electric sweepers is that they're great in towns, but as soon as you go into rural areas, they run out of juice. We have an arrangement with Surrey called Surrey Connect, which is an on-demand bus, and they're having to. We've already got 2, but only really working in the northern part. And we're getting 2 more to go into the rural areas. But as soon as you hit the rural areas, electric doesn't seem to work very well. It runs out of juice. So it might be a good thing that you haven't actually been able to buy any vehicles, because we haven't actually got any charging points in the rural areas yet. So they are supposed to be coming in, but I think there needs to be a lot more tie-in. And Ismina, being climate person, is obviously going to be involved in this as well. So I'm really pleased to hear that you're thinking of new vehicles, because we have had a bit of breakdown of vehicles in the last few months. I'm pleased to think you're considering it, but historically, the discussions we've had is that electric might not be the best thing for vehicles that need to be carrying weight. so I'm just slightly worried that you're only looking at electric vehicles and not at anything else.
I think we're just key to explore any greener option that might be available, and that's why it's really important to try and trial some of these vehicles before we make any decisions, because as you say, there will probably be a number of points that will need to be considered in terms of their suitability for the work that's required. I think the current fleet that we run sometimes struggles with the workload in those rural areas, so it would be definitely worth testing those with alternative fuel to make sure they could keep up with the demand.
Yeah, and the rural areas don't get swept anything like as often as the towns. We have to accept that we might get one sweep a year, whereas the towns could get 5 down the high street in a week. So yeah, I think it is definitely something to be considered in the overarching thing, and maybe the best vehicle should stay in the rurals. The strongest vehicle should stay in the rurals, and then the electrics in the town. Combination.
Okay, any more comments on the contract improvement plan? I'll take that as a no, so we can move on to the quarterly budget report. Nilufer.
Hi. So hi everyone. So I'm just going to go through the Q1 position. So in Annex 1, it shows the CMO income and expenditure to the end of Q1 22-23 financial year. The CMO year-end expenditure is projected to be 2.385 million, which when set against a combined annual budget and carry forward allocation of 2.39 million, representing an overall projected underspend of 5.789 favourable. Moving forward to contract, the core contract budget is projecting an overspend of £329,607. This is because the budget approved by members in November 2021 for 22-23 included an estimated 4% inflationary uplift, which is less than the final figure of 6.71% from January 2022. The variable contract budget is also affected by this higher than the budgeted inflation and sees its cost increasing by £55,335. However, savings from the disruption to the guardaway service are expected to offset these additional inflation costs, and therefore no overspend is being projected. Any questions from anyone?
Thank you, Nilufer. Questions? Ooh. No, thank you, Nilufer.
Thank you.
Clearly perfectly delivered.
Thank you.
Right, the Joint Waste Solutions Programme Progress Report. Pat or Joe?
It's going to be me because Pat wasn't able to join us this morning, but hopefully I can do the comms areas of the update justice on her behalf. So this report gives updates on the progress of activities in our work programme that have happened between April and mid-August, although I might add a few extra additions of further developments along the way. I appreciate there's a lot of information, so what I was planning to do was pick out a couple of items from each objective and then obviously take any questions on the wider content. So under Objective 1, our project to review complaints processes have moved on with a range of inquiry types being mapped to help identify where we can make improvements to manage these more effectively or resolve issues more quickly for customers going forward. As we've heard, there's differences in IT systems in some areas or the way those systems are used, which mean that the process is not always the same everywhere. So we're looking to replicate the best practice and ensure consistency wherever possible. This obviously overlaps with the IT work, and so now, as we've mentioned, as Whitespace beds in with the contract in the depots and the JWS officers that are using it, we've got a series of improvements that we want to look at, and Danielle recapped on a number of those, as well as working with Mole Valley and Elmbridge to support their work to integrate their own systems. As we've already flagged, we've had a number of meetings recently with Elmbridge to talk about that, and there's work going on behind the scenes in Mole Valley to see how that project can be resourced. Under Objective 2, the updates here include the way in which we seek to benefit from the county-wide work that's taking place. So alongside the rollout plans that are being developed and delivered to increase access to food waste collections at flatted properties, we're also looking and always seek to ensure that the joint contact authorities are included wherever possible in trials of new interventions that are taking place. The results of these trials go on to inform future Surrey Environment Partnership projects. We're also taking part in other work that's delivered on behalf of the Surrey Environment Partnership, such as the additional monitoring team who will focus on addressing contamination in recycling bins. In an update to what's in the report, the recruitment has progressed there. So one team member started and another in post. So that work is getting underway now. Under Objective 3, many of the activities in this section were not surprisingly dominated by the strike action during the period that we were reporting on, but also a lot of garden waste restoration communication was also taking place during that time. Objective 4 covers the campaigns that are taking place to encourage our residents to reduce, reuse and recycle. SEP's new recycling campaign about food waste launched this week, so there's some additional activity around that in the joint contract area which takes place. And alongside the food reduction messages that were already planned with the topical nature of cost of living and savings that could be made from reducing food waste, those will also be tied in. The Wrap Recycle Week was postponed due to the Queen's funeral taking place, so that's now due to take place in October and focuses on contamination, so that's a piece of upcoming work that we'll be looking to deliver shortly. A digital contamination campaign has started in the meantime though, and there's some new Wrap creative assets that have been developed, and we'll be making use of those, especially where they align obviously with the issues that we know we have around contamination. Our recycling guides are due to be delivered in November as scheduled, so those will be going out shortly to residents and include the Christmas collection information that they'll need around the changes to days over the Christmas week. And then finally, another update to what's in the report is that under the food waste targeted interventions, the good news is that we've been shortlisted for a National Recycling Award in the Food Waste Initiative category. That was for the targeted intervention trial carried out in Woking. The work that was done there will be delivered in Elmbridge and Mole Valley during November. So that work will be replicated in other parts of the contract. Under Objective 5, health and safety works focused on completing our audits of the 4 depots, with those reports being finalised and actions tracked where we've identified areas that we need further information or want to see some improvements from with Amy. And we've updated our own health and safety protocol and how we deliver the health and safety monitoring function for the contract. And from a business continuity point of view, obviously a large amount of time was spent on our response to the industrial action that took place in Surrey Heath and Elmbridge. And as Danielle's pointed out, there's a lot of work going on to review and update business continuity plans, taking feedback from our partners and lessons learned to make sure that those plans are as robust as possible going forward. We are interested to see those trials of alternative fuel vehicles happen when they can take place, to support the carbon reduction plans that we undertake to do under Objective 6. In terms of Objective 7, I think a key piece of work for us that's been going on in the background since Y-Space was introduced was to review and audit the processes that take place within the system to produce data for invoicing and performance reporting, with new structure to how those reports are produced and new and wider range of data that's available. We want to obviously make sure that we're comfortable with the way that data is being pulled from the system to pay invoices and report on contract performance and KPIs. And then lastly, we've got a lot of work that we're doing at the moment with the 4 authorities to look at savings and efficiencies going forward. We appreciate the budgetary pressures that all local authorities are under. And so this focuses on a range of areas, including a review of our requirements for office accommodation and an option appraisal for this going forward. Hopefully that wasn't too much too quickly, but I just wanted to flag those areas, and clearly there's a lot more detail in the report. So any questions on the areas I've spoken about or anything else, then please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them with the support of Kelly and Neil.
Okay, any questions? Come on, Ashley. You always have a question. I'll take that as a no.
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, well, if that's the case, thank you very much, Joe. And let me just get back to my agenda. That means we're largely done, and we will complete by 12:30 when I had to leave anyway. So the last item on the agenda is date of the next meeting, which is Thursday, the 1st of December at 11:30, which I presume is in everyone's diaries. Comments on that? No. If not, well, I don't know whether that's record speed from me, my second meeting. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Amy. And again, just allow me to reiterate, thank you very much for the service that you continue to supply through the strike fortnight. And I'm sure before, and I'm also sure after, but thank you very much for your service. I look forward to speaking to you in December.
Thanks all.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.